Vanderwerff. Welcome to the show, Shiiké.
Thank you, Chantal.
Now, we are talking today about a subject that I think will be of interest to a lot of people, and that is how do we develop a resilient teenager?
And isn't it a crowded space? I don't know, I'm not being unkind here, but I don't think either of us would like to go back and be a teenager today.
It would be pretty tough.
Tough, it is. This generation has so much more to deal with because if you want to develop a bit more resilience, what do? Type it into Google and you get 600 million hits on more information than anyone can process. And that's one of the biggest challenges. Not that there's too much information, but that there's sometimes so little application.
Absolutely.
And a little bit of application always trumps as much information as you can have. So hopefully today, we can discuss some things that some will find useful and some may have to modify. Because one thing's for sure, we tend to see ourselves as either being resilient and robust or not. Like some people are just tougher than me and I'm more sensitive or I'm more vulnerable. And teenagers are very good at seeing themselves in a certain way. So this is probably an opportunity to not take a one-hat-fits-all approach, and in that if we can start to look at a couple of things that will have impact, then whether it's one or whether it's all five, there's something relevant for someone.
Okay, so start us off with number one.
Well, before we get to number one,
before we get to that,
is resilience something you can manage? Is it something that you can learn to apply at any place at any given time? And this is something that's very relevant to the conversation. Getting down to number one now, in terms of managing, it's a no-brainer. Lifestyle. And this is one of the biggest challenges because particularly teenagers, not just them, of course, but everyone's competing for our attention. And that means that the big three, how you eat, how you sleep, and how you move, is sometimes being sacrificed because our attention's going on to other things. Electronics, media, social, all of these things, our attention is being, there's a war on our attention at the moment. And to go back to that really basic understanding of how nourishing sleep is, how important moving our body is and what we feed it, is clearly going to be number one because it's the most overarching of anything. So if a teenager is sleep deprived, on a sugar hit, and glued to the couch 18 hours a day, chances are when something comes in front of them that challenges their ability, they may well just not have the resources to back the application of being able to deal with it.
Those three elements are things as adults we just crave so much, aren't they? Those three things, and yet you're right, there's all these other roadblocks being thrown in the path of a teenager.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Tough.
Yep, exactly. And the second thing after lifestyle to look at, of course, is how people influence that teenager. I've got 3 children, and it was always the biggest sort of fear as to what do I do when your child comes home with another child who you deem as a bad influence. Now, clearly, the more adult and more mature a teenager gets, they choose their company. So where is their guidance? Where are their role models? And in a lot of at-risk youth, role modelling, mentoring programs are the most effective bar none in terms of breaking patterns or cycles of behaviour that we can be stuck in, and particularly our youth can be stuck in. So being aware of not just who supports them and who doesn't in what they're wanting to achieve, but where are the people that they can look up to? Where are the safe relationships they can go to? Because sometimes it may not be a parent, and 9 times out of 10 it may not be a parent, the older that child gets.
So you're saying to me that rather than looking on social media, which tends to happen a lot for the role model, we need to look at sources in our local community, perhaps?
Be really discerning, be really mindful of where you go for that role modelling.
Great. And number 3?
This is the fun one. What are the individual strengths and talents of that young person? Because we don't have to be good at everything all the time. In fact, none of us are. Can we be good at some things some of the time? And can we learn to leverage that? I'll give you a really good example with a young lady that I worked in when she was in year 11 at school. And she was mostly coming to me for a number of lifestyle adjustments. She had worked the last 2 years very well on overcoming a lot of anxiety at school. Social anxiety and also performance, particularly around exams. Now in year 11, helping her manage those was a lot of lifestyle choices that she was making, and she decided that she wanted to apply for a leadership role for year 12. The teacher was one of 3 teachers who was going to approve or decline her role as a student leader, was her key mentor through her anxiety issues. And she felt that that was in fact going to be a real black mark against her name, getting that leadership role, because she saw it as a weakness. She wasn't particularly in a place where she felt that experience had made her stronger. When she started to realise that in fact it was her strength, that if she had the ability as a student leader to empathise and support kids that were having a tough time, because she had also, she all of a sudden became twice the leader. And that was in fact a huge turning point for her. What are the individual strengths and talents that our young people have, and how can they identify and creatively innovate with them, as opposed to seeing, oh, I'm short in this area, therefore I'm no good. So it was learning to put your attention on those areas.
So in the situation, if that is your own child and you want to acknowledge their strengths and that sort of thing, is that just a conversation that you have with them?
I think you'll probably be really
that?
good as a parent at recognising strengths and talents in your child, because we kind of all do. You know, problem is sometimes we tend to use that as a situation for approval. So this is stepping away from that, I guess, younger parenting model into where the teenagers are becoming more mature, and they're going to learn to, through being a little more robust in certain situations, where do they fall back on?
Right.
And if we've looked at lifestyle and the people that they associate with, these are all choices that we can make. Now, strengths and talents, and learning to focus on where you are good, using those, and some people call them character strengths or virtues. There are a number of different online mechanisms that are quite sound, based in positive psychology and in neurology, neuroscience, beg your pardon, that you can do to discover these for your children. Positive education is very strong in this area, which is a model that I think many of our viewers would be familiar with.
Excellent. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Do we have a 4?
Yes. And this one, number 4 is learn to meditate. And meditation isn't probably in the context of that is very familiar to the broader public. What I'm suggesting is that you learn to externalise your thoughts. To be clear on that, the opposite of that is to internalise your thoughts.
Right.
So if I'm ruminating something that's causing me some grief or anxiety, for example, and I internalise that, that's how I begin to see myself. So that tough experience that I've had, that reflects on me as a person. So I'm maybe not good enough to deal with that. I'm starting to internalise the grief or the misery. Now, learning to externalise that begins to see that I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my experiences, they're simply things that I think or things that have happened to me. Now, that's a really powerful differentiation, and meditation is a great tool to learn to understand that.
Do you find that that's something that a parent might be able to teach their child, or is it something that you would suggest that they go to a professional or go, you know, what sort of resource can they do to learn that skill of external meditation that you talk about?
Coaching, positive psychology, counselling. There are some wonderful apps. Smiling Minds is a very good one that's free. Headspace is another great online resource as well, which takes a number of different visualisations and simply allows people to start seeing their thoughts or experiences as external to themselves. So they learn to look at them or view them or witness them, so they can observe what's going on. We're only a combination of 3 things at any given time: teenagers, adults. You know, we're thinking something, we're feeling something, we're doing something. And as the animal kingdom and the experts in the animal kingdom teach us, we're the one species that can observe those. So I can begin to look at what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. It doesn't have to be who I am, it's something that I can become aware of. And maybe that's the key to start to seeing something a little differently. And meditation starts to develop mental muscle in that regard. So is a parent the best person to teach that to a teenager? Could be. I would say sometimes it might be a shared experience where the parent might join in with the teenager if they had a limited experience in that area.
Great advice. Now, Shiiké, we have gone through 4 different areas of building a resilient teenager. Something tells me there's a 5th. Am I right?
It is.
Okay, share that with us.
It is. And it's the elephant in the room. Maybe not in your room, but in our room. It's what we haven't talked about, and that's the ability to persist. The ability. If you look at the first 4 and you do or don't do them, you know that if you have number 5 and if you have the ability to stick with some plan over time, you will get there eventually. And that's the I guess the one thing to keep in the back of your mind. So that starting small is okay, failing regularly is okay, and in my experience as a coach, how you view failure and how you overcome that quickly, how your ability to reset or to laugh it off or to see it as something to learn from, whatever your personal strategy is, to be able to deal with that has a huge impact on your ability to persist, because it's okay to fall off the horse or the wagon or whatever the metaphor is, as long as you then realise that you start again straight away, because it's over time where the payoffs are the best. A small little thing in any one of those areas consistently delivered over time has a huge impact on the ability to be a little more resilient. And you'll find then that some of the days you might be able to run through a wall, other days you'll bounce off it. Well, you'll find that you'll run through the walls a little more often. And when you do need to dig a little deeper, you've got some resources and that you've built up over time that you can draw on.
And that persistence that you talk about and that resilience that you talk about, again, I'm going to ask you, is that something that you feel can be taught from a parent's point of view, or is that something, again, that you go to an external source to learn that ability?
I would say it's case specific, and that as your teenager becomes more mature, they'll look certainly further afield than the parent as being the dominant influence, which again in younger parenting is certainly the role modelling is quite valid, but certainly middle and later teens, I would certainly, if you did a little bit of research and tested the water, an external source or reference would be probably a very good resource to use.
More likely to listen to those external sources.
That's right, because they're an adult now, they need to start forging, putting their signature all over their ability to be resilient more often.
Excellent. Shiiké, can I ask you just one last time, can you just recap those 5 points for us?
Yes, lifestyle. Manage the obvious. We all know the value of a good night's sleep, of fueling our body well and making sure that it moves. The company that you keep. There's a lot of cliched sayings around, show me the people that you hang around and I'll show you the person. And we are an animal that needs to be around people, so do we choose those, particularly our mentors, wisely?
Number 2?
That was number 2.
Oh, number 2, sorry, number 3.
Number 3.
So many numbers.
It's our ability to tap into our strengths and talents. So do we need to be good at everything? No. Do we know what's important to us and how to express that clearly and how to use that for leverage? That's the real gift there. Number 4 was meditate. Begin small, comfortable, again using some of the resources that we mentioned and or exploring a little further, because our mental muscle is a profound influence. And the last one, persistence. Can we deliver consistently over time for just a small change for the greatest impact? Because our stress and the anxieties that our young people have to face, it is a shifting landscape. It's not the same as when I was a teenager, and very likely any of our viewers. So we need to have a little bit of empathy for the amount of things that are in front of them competing for their ability to find what's important to them and commit to it.
Absolutely. Shiiké, I think what really sort of resounded with me and what I got out of that is that we don't, as parents, necessarily have to feel like all that pressure is on us. Look at those external sources, look at the professionals out there that can actually help, and have a think about those 5 steps that you've just covered. So I want to thank you so much